There is a hyaluronic acid serum in millions of bathrooms right now. The label makes incredible promises. It says it delivers deep hydration, it plumps your skin from within, and it claims the molecule actively seeks out dry areas to fill them with moisture. But here's the critical fact the label completely leaves out. The vast majority of hyaluronic acid molecules used in these formulas are physically too large to penetrate your skin's outer barrier. They simply sit on the surface. They create a temporary, slippery film that feels incredibly hydrating when you touch your face. But underneath that temporary film, especially in certain humidity conditions, they are doing something the brand will never put in their marketing material. They are actively pulling moisture out of your skin instead of pushing it in. The very serum you bought to cure your dry skin might be the exact reason it feels so dehydrated. The skincare industry knows exactly why this chemical reaction happens. Their marketing departments just choose to ignore it. Today, we are going to expose 3 highly popular hyaluronic acid products, built on claims this molecule cannot physically keep, and reveal 3 formulas that actually solve the problem the right way. Before we name the brands, you need to understand the chemistry of hyaluronic acid, because this one fact changes how you will look at every serum. As a molecule, hyaluronic acid is a humectant. It acts like a microscopic sponge, capable of attracting and holding up to 1,000 times its own weight in water. That sounds extraordinary, and in the right context, it is. The fatal flaw is that this sponge does not care where it gets its water from. If you live in a perfectly humid environment, it pulls moisture from the air and holds it against your face. But if you are in a dry environment, like a heated office, an air-conditioned room, or simply walking outside on a cold winter day, there is no moisture in the air to grab. So that massive molecule sitting on the surface of your face acts like a vacuum. It pulls the deep foundational moisture from the lower levels of your skin up to the surface, where it immediately evaporates into the dry air. You are essentially paying a premium price to dehydrate yourself. Applying a powerful humectant without a proper occlusive to seal that moisture in is a recipe for disaster. Stay until the end of this video, because the formulation fix I am going to share is completely simple, incredibly inexpensive, and it is a technique you can apply tonight to every single hyaluronic acid product you already have sitting in your cabinet. To understand the real deception here, we have to look at what hyaluronic acid actually does inside your body versus what happens when you buy it in a bottle. Naturally, this molecule is one of the main structural components of the space between your skin cells. It maintains volume, holds moisture, and keeps the skin looking full. As we age, that natural supply declines, contributing to fine lines. So the cosmetic logic sounds flawless. If you lose it, just paint it back on, right? But human biology is considerably more complicated than a marketing brochure. In the formulation world, hyaluronic acid is categorized by its size, measured in molecular weight. The stuff in almost every mass-market serum is what we call high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. As I mentioned earlier, these molecules are absolutely massive. They physically cannot pass through your outer barrier. So what are they actually doing? They are providing what cosmetic chemists call surface conditioning. They create a highly convincing, immediate illusion. Your skin feels incredibly smooth and quenched the second you apply it. But make no mistake, this is not deep hydration. It is simply a pleasing sensory experience that washes right down the drain at the end of the day. Now you might be asking, if the large molecules are too big to work, why don't brands just shrink them? Well, they can. It is called low molecular weight hyaluronic acid. And published studies show these smaller fragments actually can penetrate into the deeper layers of your skin. But here's the massive catch-22 that the industry rarely talks about. When you break hyaluronic acid down into these microfragments, your skin's immune system can mistake them for tissue damage. In nature, broken hyaluronic acid is a biological alarm signal that you have a wound. So, forcing these tiny foreign molecules into your deeper skin layers can actually trigger an inflammatory response. Add to that the fact that low molecular weight fragments are incredibly expensive to produce and notoriously difficult to stabilize. So what do the massive skincare conglomerates do? They stick to the cheap, giant molecules that sit safely on the surface, avoid the inflammation risk, and give you that instant gratification. And this brings us back to the most critical failure of these serums, the missing half of the equation. We already talked about how this molecule acts as a humectant, pulling water out of your deeper skin layers if the air around you is dry. To stop that dehydration process, you absolutely must pair it with an occlusive, an ingredient that creates a physical seal over the skin, locking the moisture inside. Humectant to draw the water, occlusive to trap it. That is the unbreakable biological law of hydration. Yet look at the back of your serum bottle. Many of these expensive products contain absolutely zero occlusive ingredients. They are marketed and sold to you as a complete standalone hydration solution. But clinically speaking, they are only half a product. And worse, they are the exact half that will actively work against your skin when the other half is missing. Now, let's look at the first product on our list. And there is a very high chance it is sitting in your bathroom right now. Neutrogena Hydro Boost Water Gel. It is one of the best-selling skincare products in the world. It sits in drugstore displays across every single market, heavily endorsed by dermatologists in commercials, and trusted by millions. At around $20, it is positioned as accessible, clinically sound hydration. But the problem here isn't the price. The problem is the exact formulation trap we just talked about. Let's look closely at what's inside. Neutrogena is owned by Johnson & Johnson, one of the largest healthcare conglomerates on the planet. They have access to the most advanced formulation science in the world. They completely understand molecular weight and skin penetration. Yet they refuse to disclose the molecular weight of the hyaluronic acid in this formula. Why? Because cosmetic chemists know exactly what's in it. Given its famous, ultra-light, water-based gel texture and the complete absence of any meaningful occlusive ingredient, Hydro Boost is almost certainly relying on those massive, cheap, high molecular weight surface molecules. Remember that surface conditioning illusion I mentioned earlier? This product is the absolute king of it. The second you put it on, it feels extraordinary. It creates an instant, plump, hydrated sensation. But what happens when you leave your bathroom and walk into a heated office, an air-conditioned car, or step outside on a cold day? Because this incredibly popular gel lacks that crucial occlusive barrier to seal the moisture in, it triggers the exact dehydration cycle we just discussed. It stops hydrating and starts pulling the foundation moisture from your deep tissue to the surface, where it simply evaporates. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated corporate decision. J&J could switch to the more expensive, lower-weight molecules. They could add an occlusive layer, but doing so would completely destroy that famous, refreshing, lightweight gel texture that makes the product sell out globally. They optimized this formula entirely for the 10-second sensory experience of applying it, not for the deep hydration they promise on the box. At $20, Hydro Boost isn't breaking the bank. But because it is the most widely purchased hyaluronic acid product on Earth, this specific formulation gap, selling a powerful humectant without a seal, is quietly dehydrating more faces than any other single product in the skincare aisle. Now, let's move from the drugstore to the luxury beauty counter for the second product on our list. This one is an absolute masterclass in celebrity marketing. Charlotte Tilbury's Magic Cream, at around $100 for 1.7 ounces, which breaks down to roughly $62 per ounce, this product commands extraordinary consumer loyalty. It relies heavily on an aspirational, magic brand identity. But when we look at the actual formula, the magic starts to look a lot like standard chemistry dressed up in expensive packaging. The brand heavily promotes a key hydrating active they call the Rejuticare Synapse. Now, that name is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It is specifically designed to sound like a patented, highly advanced, clinically tested medical technology. But here's the reality check. It is just a marketing term. It is a brand-created name for a very basic combination of standard peptides and hyaluronic acid. They took these common ingredients, grouped them together, gave it a futuristic name, and called it proprietary, without publishing a single piece of independent clinical data to prove this combination works any better than the cheap stuff. Just like we saw with Neutrogena, Charlotte Tilbury completely fails to disclose the molecular weight of their hyaluronic acid. They also refuse to disclose the actual concentration of those peptides. And that synapse mechanism they imply is happening in your skin, it is not described in any published independent scientific research. Now, to be entirely fair to this product, it does contain actual occlusive ingredients. It has a much richer texture than Hydro Boost. Because it creates a seal over the skin, it is significantly less likely to trigger that reverse dehydration cycle we talked about earlier. But avoiding a formulation disaster does not automatically justify a luxury price tag. When you pay $62 an ounce for Magic Cream, you're not paying for a breakthrough in hyaluronic acid delivery. You are paying for the signature rose gold packaging, the celebrity associations, and a beautifully crafted brand story. The physical experience of opening that jar feels incredibly premium. But there is a reason you will never see an independent clinical trial comparing Magic Cream to a standard $50 fragrance-free drugstore moisturizer. because the results would completely destroy the illusion of the price. And that brings us to the third product on our list, Mario Badescu's Hyaluronic Morning Buzz Moisturizer. When we choose a skincare product, transparency is often one of the most important factors. This particular brand has previously been the subject of public discussions regarding how ingredients are disclosed on their labels. For consumers who value complete transparency, this kind of history might make the details of any new formula especially important to look at. At around $22 for 2 ounces, this moisturizer highlights hyaluronic acid and caffeine. However, just like we've seen with other products today, the exact molecular weight of the hyaluronic acid isn't clearly disclosed, nor are the specific concentrations of the caffeine or botanical extracts. When a product doesn't share these specifics, it leaves us with some reasonable questions. Are we getting the larger surface molecules? Is there a sufficient occlusive barrier included to prevent that moisture loss cycle we discussed? For those who prefer to know exactly what they are putting on their skin, this lack of detailed information might simply be a reason to pause, compare your options, and ask a few more questions before making a purchase. So, now that we've looked at the products that leave us with questions, let's talk about solutions. If you're going to spend your money on hyaluronic acid, there are formulas out there that take a completely different approach. These are options that address the molecular weight issue, consider the occlusive barrier, and prioritize transparency at 3 very different price points. First up, for under $10, we have the Inky List Hyaluronic Acid Serum. What makes this one interesting is the level of transparency at such an accessible price point. According to the brand, they use 2 different molecular weights of hyaluronic acid. They include the larger molecules for that immediate surface plumping effect and the smaller molecules designed for deeper penetration. They also clearly state the concentration right on the label, 2%. But perhaps the most valuable part of this product isn't just what is in the bottle, but the instructions on it. The brand openly recommends applying an occlusive moisturizer over the top to seal in the hydration. It's a refreshing level of honesty about how this molecule actually works in the real world. Moving to the mid-range, we have Vichy Mineral 89 Hyaluronic Acid Serum at around $30. This formula takes a slightly different approach. It combines hyaluronic acid with the brand's signature volcanic water, but more importantly, it includes mild occlusive components. As we discussed earlier, having that built-in barrier might help reduce the risk of the serum pulling moisture out of your skin in dry environments. It is fragrance-free, formulated with sensitive skin in mind, and manufactured under strict pharmaceutical-grade production standards. For $30, it offers a very balanced combination of disclosed ingredients and a more complete hydration system. Finally, if we look at the premium tier, there is SkinCeuticals Hydrating B5 Gel at around $92. It is undeniably expensive, but the formulation choices here are worth examining. This formula combines hyaluronic acid with vitamin B5, also known as panthenol. Panthenol is a fascinating ingredient because it can act as both a humectant and a mild occlusive. This means the serum is essentially trying to create that 2-component hydration system we've been talking about, all in one bottle. The brand also states that they use multiple molecular weights to address both the surface and deeper layers of the skin, and they are highly transparent about their key ingredient concentrations. When a product asks for a premium price, this is the level of formulation detail and transparency many consumers expect to see, rather than just a proprietary name or a celebrity endorsement. So, let's quickly recap what we've covered today. On one hand, we have mass-market giants like Neutrogena Hydro Boost. It is incredibly popular, yet it leaves us without clear answers about the molecular weight of its hyaluronic acid. Because it lacks a strong occlusive component, there is a real question about whether it might actually be pulling moisture away from your skin in those dry indoor environments. Then, we have the luxury options like Charlotte Tilbury, charging around $62 per ounce for a catchy, proprietary, complex name, while keeping the actual concentrations of their hyaluronic acid and peptides a mystery. And we looked at Mario Badescu, a brand whose past public discussions regarding labeling transparency make their continued choice to keep ingredient concentrations undisclosed particularly frustrating for consumers. But on the flip side, we saw that you do not have to accept that lack of transparency. The Inky List clearly discloses their 2% concentration and multiple molecular weights for under $10. Vichy offers a balanced, occlusive-inclusive formula with pharmaceutical-grade production standards for around $30. And SkinCeuticals justifies its premium price tag by combining humectants with panthenol, focusing on highly transparent, evidence-backed formulation choices, The ultimate fix for using hyaluronic acid correctly is actually incredibly simple, and it doesn't require a $100 luxury cream. All you need is a basic serum that clearly discloses its molecular weights, followed immediately by a standard moisturizer with occlusive ingredients to seal that hydration in. You can easily build this two-step routine for under $25, and it will likely give you the deep, lasting hydration that most expensive, single-product serums promise but struggle to deliver on their own. Make sure to subscribe, because next week we are looking at the niacinamide market. We will explore why some brands are charging premium prices for concentrations so incredibly low, you have to wonder if they can actually produce the results printed on the label. I'll see you then.